I know we found these with Excel, but let's also double check that we can find them with StatCrunch because, hey, StatCrunch is useful and it's on the web. All right, so we go to Stat, go to Calculators, go to Normal, and you say, okay, I want this mean to be 1066, 191, and then we want a less than probability, and we want 0.025. Compute. There you can see this, the one on the left, we found it to be the same thing we found the other way, snapshot. All right, so this is 7.2 example 5C part 1, because we're going to need to do it twice here. So I'm going to export that. I'm going to stay in here. I'm going to find it for the one on the other side. Now, the cool thing about StatCrunch is you can do it two ways. You can say 975, just like we did with Excel, right? And when we did 975 with Excel, this is essentially what we were doing, finding the area all the way to the left. So that would work. Or you can also use the greater than feature. So Excel has this StatCrunch has this greater than feature. So you can switch that arrow to, actually it's a greater than symbol. So switch it to greater than and type in 0.025 again. And then since it's greater than, it works that way. So, oopsie. There we go. Compute. Now I hit a snapshot and I type 7.2 example 5C part 2. Export. And then it should be saved. So I'm going to go to my other tab that has that. And I can go back to my results. And there they are, both parts. So I'll copy and then paste into Excel for my technology assignment. So put them both in here. Oops. It doesn't like the back button. And if I triple clicked it, it went back. There we go. So then copy. And then get back in here and paste. No, I'm just going to make it smaller. That's only for my own benefit. You don't have to bother if you don't want to. All right, so you can see it's giving you giving you and us, yes, the same numbers as we got with Excel. All right, cool. All right, we're done with that one. Now let's go down here. Now the trick is, when do you know which one to use? Because we've gotten two things here. We've gotten a NORM.DIST thing, and we've gotten a NORM.INV thing. And the same holds true for StatCrunch. I mean, when do you type into here? When do you put a number over here in the probability parentheses portion, and when do you put it over here on the right? Okay. All right, now the answer is it depends on what's given and what you're asked for. So if they give you values and are asking you for somewhere in the problem, find the area, find the probability, find the percentile rank, find the proportion, the percent, all of that stuff. If they ask for any of those things, they want you to use NORM.DIST, i.e. you would put in, matter of fact, I'll make a note here. For StatCrunch, you enter the mean, standard deviation, obviously, and the parentheses x value. All right, so let me see if I can, maybe I should just say the value on the left. It's this one right here. It's in those parentheses right there. So, and the left cell in the bottom line. Okay? All right. So that's how StatCrunch would work. So you enter basically the top two always, because you need a mean and a standard deviation. And then if they're giving you x values, then you put the x value in here. In other words, this cell over here on the left is x, and this over here is the probability or area. So if they give you an x value, then put in the x value. If they give you a probability, then put in the probability. Okay? So, and x. And I will just say that that's the left cell in the bottom line. Okay? All right, now what about the other way? That's NORM.INV, NORM.INV. And again, if you have old Excel, they won't have the dots in there, but it's the same idea. Okay? So for NORM.INV, it wants the left tail probability always, the mean and the standard deviation. Now, how do you know when to use that one? Well, that's the one that they're giving you the areas, they're giving you percentiles, they're giving you that stuff, and they're asking you for a score, a value, x value, z value. Sometimes they'll just say x, sometimes they'll just say z, all that stuff. Okay. Now with StatCrunch, it's a little bit different. You enter your mean and standard deviation and your probability, or here, area, which is the right cell in the bottom line. So you would enter down here instead of x, you would enter over here. This is the probability cell. So you could say like 0.025, enter, and it finds it for you. Okay? So the one on the right, that's the area. Okay? Cool. Now that we know that, let me just double back for a second. See how it says determine the scores? What is the percentile? What is the percentile? Right? So if the problem is asking for a percentile, right, then this is that one, right? They gave you that it was the 25th, right? So they're really giving you a percentage, and they're asking you for a percentile. In fact, I'll make that one go away. All right, what else? What should be their cutoff score? Again, that's a score one, right? Cutoff scores, cutoff. They'll sometimes use that word. Right, so those were all norm inverse ones, right? See, find the x value that cuts off. See, they're asking for x. Earlier, they were saying, what's the percentile rank? Right? What proportion? See the word proportion? What proportion right there, and so on. And then here, we're just flat out asking for probabilities. That's what that notation is. So that's how you can tell whether what you're doing is looking for a NORM.DIST, right? If they're asking for proportions or percents, or norm inverse if they're asking for scores or cutoffs or that kind of thing. Alrighty, so let's put together everything we've learned slowly over time, and let's remind ourselves about the standard normal curve. The standard normal curve has a mean of 0, standard deviation of 1. Never forget the formula for z-scores. We learned that way back in section 3.4. So you learned that in 3.4, and it's not gone away. We're supposed to find the following. Find the probability that z is greater than 1.3 or z is less than or equal to negative 2.1. Okay. So we'll do it two different directions. Hold on, let me go up here and copy. We're going to find it both with Excel and with StatCrunch yet again. Okay, so let's go to StatCrunch. Go to Stat. Calculators, normal. Now the good thing about the standard normal curve is it's the one that automatically shows up because it's standard. Get it? Standard, meaning that's the basic one that they always start with. Okay, so then they told us that they want it, z is greater than 1.3. We can do that. So let me go here. So I want greater than, so I'm going to switch this arrow to the other direction. I want a greater than symbol. And I'm going to type 1.3. Enter, or compute. And there it found it, 0.0968. Take a snapshot. So this is 7.2, example 6a. I'm going to call it part 1 because we're going to have to do 2 parts. All right, that worked. Now we're going to do a less than part because we also need less than negative 2.1. So I'm going to click compute, and there's the other side. Cool. So take a snapshot. And again, this is 7.2, example 6a, part 2. Okay, so in Excel, in here, I can say 7.2, example 6a, like that. And then I can copy and paste those pictures. So let me go do that. So I'm going to go in here, go to my results. And you can see there they are. Copy. Okay, so I pasted the other one in there. Now the problem with this is that StatCrunch didn't find the two of them together. It just found each one of them separately. So if you want the probability that x is greater than 1.3 or x is less than negative 2.1. Well, remember from chapter 5, we learned that ORs mean you have to add it, right? So we need to add these up. So you're going to take equals 0.096800484 plus, I can't see the other number, 0.017864421. And there we go, 0.1146. All right, so that's with StatCrunch. Better label it StatCrunch. Now let's do it with Excel, because this is the one time that Excel is actually easier, believe it or not. Okay, so we want to find the left one. So we'll find the left area first. That's equal to NORM.DIST, and then you tell it the value you want, which was negative 2.1, comma 0, comma 1, comma true. Okay. There's actually another function as well that would do it, but I figured let's stick with what we know. So we know NORM.DIST. All right, so then I want the right area. Well, remember, Excel doesn't find the right area by default, so you got to do 1 minus NORM.DIST. If you like, you can do it in 2 separate parts as well. So we want 1.3, comma 0, comma 1, comma true, always true for that one. Enter. And there are the 2 parts, right tail and left tail. So the total area, actually, I'll use this right here, is equal to the sum of those 2 values. And there we go. Cool. All right, so I'll paste that in over here. Make this go away. This is the one time for those between ones that Excel is actually simpler to use than than StatCrunch. Now, I'm going to make a picture that you wouldn't make with anything else, right? You just draw it by hand. Hold on one second. All right. I know it's like magic, but that's I just made that graph. So, and again, you're just wanting to draw it by hand for your notes. I'm just showing you what it would look like roughly. If you did it with a computer. So you'd want to draw by hand a curve that looks something like this. You put negative 2.1 on the left, you put 1.3 on the right, you shade the 2 different regions, and then you add them up. Now, the graph actually I have drawn here makes them look symmetrical. They weren't. 2.1 is farther over than 1.3, but you get the general idea. All right, we're all done with that problem. I think we're going to have to pause it there and come back for the next one for the middle 90%. So I'll see you then.